We're rolling, rock and rolling, Jan.
We're back.
Jan Allain.
You've just sung me in your lounge, playing your keyboard there. Lonesome Dancer by...
Lonesome Dancer's lyrics were written by Red Mitchell, American jazz double bass player. It's an amazing collaboration. And music by a Polish jazz double bass player too, by the name of Bronek Suchanek. So two double bass players, one lyrics, one music.
And it sounds like a very jazz, sort of traditional jazz piano song for a singer. And the lyrics are very poignant because they're just about what we were talking about. The striving, the sort of journey, the solo journey one takes as an artist. And I was asking you the difference between vocals without words and this change into an album with words. And you started to talk about how the record companies doubted or kind of refused to take the risk with commercial aspect of the first album because it was too, left of field, too jazzy, too wordless, not poppy enough?
Too out of any category, really. That one of the difficulties was pigeonholing it. Is it jazz? Is it world? Is it experimental? What is it? New age? It really is neither of those. Really, it's like a melange of all sorts of influences. But
so, what's Lonesome Dancer saying that you can relate to? What's that song that you've just sung to me about?
Every artist has a journey where they very often are misunderstood by the world around them.
I'm sure you sang me that song because you relate to something in it. What does the song... Give the title of the song again.
Lonesome Dancer.
And why did you just sing it? How come?
We'd have to hear the words, right? It says, turn to the world, you poor lonesome dancer, and turn your back on those you love. You will always be a lonely, lonesome dancer chosen by some force above you. You'll return to your world, you rich lonesome dancer. So there is a transformation from poor to rich.
And this echoes something I read in the inner sleeve of the James Taylor new album.
Yes.
Where he says he struggled to get back into writing. And of course you need space. You do need space and solitary space when you're writing and creating work. And in the liner notes, he said it was a bit of a struggle for him to get that space at first. And that's it. You have to turn your back on those you love. You have to disengage and be alone to get into the creative space from whence comes the art.
It is a very, very solitary path to follow, really, the one of a creative individual.
So
in the lyrics, let me just finish. It was, what did he say that... and you'll return to the world, you rich, lonesome dancer. Your wealth is more than you will know. Your art will live and help some lonely people. It's your only way to go. And that is the double verse for you. And then there's also a bridge and comeback of the verse at the end, which has got more insights as to the role of a creative person, sort of providing an opportunity to heal for themselves as well as those who participate in the experience of that person's creativity. It's an amazing thing, actually, the healing power of music.
Do you think you have compromised with this new album because you're frightened of being ignored as a commercial artist? Or do you think you haven't actually compromised? Do you get frustrated and feel misunderstood by, the industry? When I say the industry, I don't know what I'm describing anymore.
That's my problem.
Because the industry's changed so much.
That's right.
But you are a truly independent artist and you've had staying power and invested an enormous amount of your time and effort into manifesting your own work. With both the first album and the second album that's not complete yet. Do you yearn for recognition and commercial success? Or are you prepared to just keep being an artist?
Yes, the second, the latter.
Because you believe in what the lyrics of that song say. They echo your deeper understanding, which is...
No, this song is not an instruction manual, like a map on which I've decided many years ago when I first came across this album to sort of travel, to manifest what's in the song. No, it was another incident of hashgacha in my life, that the song has manifested. I actually met Bronek Suchanek personally when I was given the music and words to that song, and then incorporated this song in my repertoire as a jazz musician at the time. But it just happened that way, and I'm not trying to control it. It's just that I can't, in a way, help doing what I'm doing, and it would be just a bonus if I ever managed to get recognition. But, we're talking now about a very sad affair called music industry these days. You yourself have traveled along that path. Like, how much should I compromise, right? And do I want the big money and fame and fortune?
Well, my brush with a record deal was difficult. I had made 6 albums myself, arranged and paid for all the recordings myself. Used to buy my own tour buses and tour around Germany. I built up a loyal cult following and sold about 15,000 copies of my albums without a record deal. And the first record deal I got backfired financially because I didn't do the maths. And I got £1 per CD sold instead of £12 all in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So I would have to have sold 12 times as many CDs through the deal to even get the same money as I was getting doing it myself. The big record companies still do sign up artists that become the wealthiest artists on the planet. There's a big disparity now, I think, between those that are very commercially successful and those that survive from their own efforts. And the gap in the middle is rather strange and nebulous, I think. But it's not impossible to survive as an artist without a record deal anymore. You can sell stuff online. You can make very exceptionally fantastic recordings yourself, as you said, at home. But I just hope you don't suffer from, what about me? Because the whole business of, will they sign me? Sort of knocking on doors and finding a record company that will kind of like you or accept you. I think it's over now. We have to be prepared to commit to our truth as artists.
Well, this has always been a primary goal for me anyway. I never, thought of corrupting. I remember having once an interview for Polish radio. I used the word musical prostitute. I'm a bit ashamed of it now. But at the time, I felt strongly about using that term in the context of, here is my music. I refuse to be a musical prostitute. It's not to say that, those wonderful pop artists out there are musical prostitutes. But I'd rather be faithful to the whisper of my soul than try and bend myself in order to kind of, it looks like, maybe I don't want to come across as arrogant, but sort of signing your soul to a devil. I never really made those choices. It just sort of always been the case that I would never even ponder on making such choices.
How does your spiritual faith affect your musical creativity?
I believe that as humans, we are all primarily souls clothed by a body, and some of us have a greater awareness of it or attachment to it, and some not such a great awareness. And I have been acutely aware of it forever. That I'm not a body with some sort of life force that makes me grow or want to eat or enjoy music, but rather the other way around. And I needed to find a framework that would help me sustain that awareness and develop it further. So this is, like spiritual kind of growth.
So is your reluctance to talk about your faith to do with the fear of being exposed?
I actually am reluctant to talk about many other subjects to do with me, because I just gained that perspective that whatever it is, it's not really it, you know? I can't describe something that seems to be so... I have become an observer lately, more of a spectator of my own life, and the more I go that way, the more I realize that I just don't understand anymore. I was shocked to see how much arrogance there was in my voice. When I listened to that BBC Radio World Service interview, it was like, I don't want to have to do with that person, to be honest.
Do you think we're one person from birth to death, or do you think we go through many different people, different personalities?
It's one soul, but it goes through its process of development and growth, maturing.
So can you forgive that younger self?
You tricked me into it. I'll try. Yes, why not? But, you know, as a consequence of it, now it's like talking about myself, and my publisher asked me to come up with this sort of biographical information, which is what we're doing in the form of an interview here. And I got emailed several questions, because they read my biography, and based on it, they asked certain concrete questions. And I just wouldn't know how to begin anymore. Because reflecting back on my, say, musical childhood, and how do I think it influenced where I am now, I would have told you that 15 years ago for that radio interview, but now it's sort of one big mystery to me, to be honest. I'm more of a spectator of this Jarmila soul going through this world, and curious to see what happens next.
What do you understand by the word prodigy? What does prodigy mean? You were described as a child prodigy, musically.
Well, I understand that it's someone with extraordinary skills or abilities or talents. Gifts. That manifest at an early stage of their lives, I think. Is that the right definition of the word prodigy?
I think so. And so, when they recognised your gifts as a child musically, was that your singing and your piano playing? Do you remember being conscious of adults noticing your talent? Did you have chances that other children don't have, like special music lessons or chances to perform? Were you pushed?
I see. No, it was never a matter of being pushed. It's just I couldn't resist music.
That sounds nice.
It and still is my oxygen. I come from okay, so here we go into the biographical stage of our conversation. I come from a musical family to begin with, so music was always around, you know, Mom being an opera singer, and my dad, who was actually a lecturer at the Polytechnics and an electric engineer, but at the same time he was also a natural-born musician, and his mother played the violin. So on both sides, and there were uncles and cousins, multi-instrumentalists, klezmer musicians, on my dad's side as well as my mom's. And so really this was like being born into the family that's practicing music religiously, if you like.
Where was this, your childhood in Poland? Which town?
In Łódź.
Okay.
In Łódź, which in Polish is pronounced Łódź. Łódź.
Did I dream that you were yodeling up mountains?
Did
I dream you were yodeling and bringing goats down?
Do you remember my early performances at the trolley stop. That's when the sheep were happening in my voice.
I'll never forget it. I sat in the back of the trolley stop and you appeared with leather bells strapped between your ankles and your knees, wearing lederhosen and a beautiful white embroidered blouse. And the whole room was draped in white sheets.
Yes.
And your friend David was operating...
Actually, it was someone else. I have to correct you on that. You forgive me, please.
A movie camera.
There was a few people
there was
doing
some
that,
incense burning. And it was most mysterious and interesting. And you sat down at the piano and blew us all away with Keith Jarrett-style phenomenal jazz piano and your multi-layered vocals. And you just ripped the roof off the back of the trolley stop room.
Well, it's such a pleasure to hear you speak about me. It's like such an interview is like so self-indulgent.
No, but
thank you.
But
for
the yodeling,
a treat.
but the yodeling and the film footage, which was being projected onto the sheets draped over the pool table and
my piano, myself,
yes,
wearing white,
yes,
and all the musicians wearing white. We served as screens for these projections. It was a Super 8 film projection as well as slides.
But was that you as a child yodeling up mountains, or did I imagine it?
Yeah, well, we used to go to the mountains, Tatra Mountains, a lot. And my parents, I owe them so much, bless them. My parents exposed me to many different styles and genres of music from the very early age, because Mum used to be a classical opera singer and there was always classical music in our house, and that's how I was primarily trained as a classical pianist. But then we also had these jazzy klezmer uncles and cousins in the family. And my dad had a particular love for swing and jazz, so there was always, plenty of jazz records being played. I also have a really groovy sister who is several years older than me, and she always had these fabulous, proper, rock records played in her room next door to mine, and that subsequently must have somehow influenced me, because I became a great rock music lover, and for a period of time I was involved in a prominent rock band in Poland, entering various collaborations with rock musicians, etc., etc. And my love for rock music continues till today. And I'm sure you can hear it echoing on my current album, Aspaklaria, where David Farren, who is a founder member of the legendary British ska band Bad Manners, contributes some absolutely brilliant electric guitar parts as well as some double bass and electric bass parts. My album Aspaklaria is... I can't help saying that, right? Is being mixed by a superb Grammy-winning producer, engineer, and mixer, Matt Lawrence, who is working on a beautiful SSL G Plus series console at one of the Miloko studios in London. A dream come true for me, absolutely. I couldn't help digressing a bit, but now going back to my childhood influences, there was also exploration of ethnic and world music, and that's where I would go every year to the Tatra Mountains, to Zakopane, and participate as an audience in the international festival of the Highlanders from all around the world. Highlanders would be coming, especially European, but also some other parts of the world. Highlanders would be coming and presenting their unique folk music. So I was exposed to that. And then at the age of 18, I came to England for the first time and met a lady called Helen Barley in the Midlands, who is a wonderful folk musician and a folk song collector, who then exposed me to the ballads from the 18th and 19th century English, as well as other Scottish and Welsh ballads, and also Irish folk songs, as well as American folk song as an extension of that. And I was trained by her in singing these songs and accompanying myself on guitar. And when I came back to Poland and then subsequently started my studies at the Faculty of Jazz and Popular Music in Katowice, Academy of Music in Katowice, I actually somehow subconsciously rebelled, shall we say, because everybody else was doing jazz standards. And I had to do that as part of the curriculum of the school. But I also, by then, became this balladeer with a guitar who was propagating these traditional British ballads and folk songs. So there's all kinds of musical romances in my life. And as I said, I keep searching and searching. As I go through this life, it seems to be there's a certain hunger for new experiences, and I'm trying to break through this old programming and try to, enter new areas.
So after coming to England when you were 18, did you return to live in Poland for a while?
I went only for a short summer vacation, a few months, and then I went back and started studying for my master's degree. Is this
why you've kind of settled now in London, in England, because it's a country you got to know when you were 18?
I had a family here, actually. My great aunt, when I first came, as an 18-year-old girl, I actually, it's a long story. In the communist regime, it wasn't easy to travel. My mother and father attempted my visit to England quite a few times before it became possible. On one occasion, I had a passport, but I wasn't granted a visa. On the other occasion, I had a visa, but something else came up, and Polish authorities had a problem letting me go. Whatever. Finally, you had to have a proper invitation from somebody here.
Who did you get invited
So
by?
I had this great aunt who lived in Pittsford, in Midlands. And when I think it was the third attempt that I got both the visa as well as a passport. And I was ready to go. And Mummy was booking a flight when suddenly somebody from England called to say that I should come as soon as possible, really, because it just so happens that she died the day before. So my flight was sped up, and I came basically for the funeral.
And stayed.
I was completely shocked. And then people, good-hearted people, were looking after me during the 2-month visit, because they knew how hard it was for me to come over from Poland on my own, quite a few times trying it and not succeeding. And finally, when I came to this funeral, there was all sorts of, plans already made for the young Jarmila to nevertheless make the most of her holiday in England.
But what was the initial trip to England about? Was it about extending your musical education?
No, it wasn't really planned. It was just
a trip for you.
Mummy wanted me to learn English a bit better, I guess.
Okay.
Well, my sister also came to visit this great aunt beforehand in previous years. And she stayed here for over 1.5 years, learning English and etc., etc. But there were no great plans. I certainly wasn't going to stay for 1.5 years. I was going to go back and study in the Academy of Music. But that's how it all started. And then subsequently, I got to know some people here. Amongst them was Helen Barley. And when I was traveling a couple of times after that, it was already on the invitation, because you still had to get your invitation, proper invitation, to get your visa and all that sorted. So then I would be coming again on these other people's invitations, and eventually stayed and started growing my roots here.
You've lived in this apartment a long time, haven't you, in this building?
Since 1997.
So when you first moved into this building, is that really when you settled in London?
I guess you could put it that way, yes.
That's about just a bit less than I've known you. I've known you just over 20 years, I think.
Right. It's a long time.
Your English has
being friends.
Your English has improved. I think your vocabulary is broader than mine now.
Is it? But I still have that thing that you don't, which I'd like to get rid of. It's called an accent.
Oh, no. No, don't.
I will never sound authentically English. Say goodbye to that dream.
What's the name of the new album again?
Aspaclaria.
Can you spell that?
Aspaclaria. Aspaclaria. I think that's the right spelling.
Where does the word come from and what does it mean?
Yes, this word for a change is an ancient Aramaic word. The full expression actually is Aspaclaria Meira, which means a clear lens. So we could just shorten it to Aspaclaria, meaning a clear lens. It means a clear lens. Something I'm striving to achieve. What a very ambitious project.
This sense of wanting to break out of the brain, out of your brain that you've talked about. If you have been recognised as a child prodigy and does your own mind it seems to me that you reach your own intellectual potential with your music. It's not just about pure musical expression, that by becoming an engineer you've satisfied your intellectual potential. Was your father, you just mentioned earlier, he was an engineer of some kind?
Yes.
Okay. So your intelligence as a person is, I think you kind of hunger to reach your own intelligence edges. Am I right in thinking that with your music?
I'm never quite that conscious of it, though. It's like an inner drive.
Yeah, but the first album was so very, very ambitious and you reached it. You know, you manifest a very amazing, huge body of work that's highly complex, it's highly accomplished on every level, as a singer, as a pianist, as a composer, as a self-produced. Was it self-produced?
Yes, I have arranged everything as well as produced, but it was co-produced by a wonderful person called Daniel Biro.
Okay.
A friend of mine, a musician, composer himself.
So here's this young Polish child, notably gifted musically as a child, and then exposed through her parents' connections and family with a rich diversity of music to lots of lovely input, and you got lots of different influences, and came to England, settled in London, and then found yourself kind of creating your own arena in which to use your mind and your talents at music. And took you years to make Hashgasha, and now we have the new album, which I can't pronounce.
Hashgacha, you can't pronounce.
The new one is
Aspaclaria.
Aspaclaria. See, complex words like your complex albums. Aspaclaria. How would you describe your own mind?
I really don't know. I'd have to come out of it and see it.
What's special about you that makes your music as magnificent as it is, as complex as it is? Is it the way your mind works?
Yes, I guess. Thank you very much for your beautiful epithets and descriptions. I feel thrilled, and the thing is, I don't really know anymore how to begin to grasp the phenomenon of music and how it manifests through various different lenses, if you like, people, prisms. All I can say is that every time I make a creative statement, it usually, probably almost always, but to different degrees of perfection, but almost, and I'd have to say always, it is always an expression of some sort of a dream that manifests in this head of mine, or soul, or whatever it is. Where I don't know where it comes from, really. And it's not even mine. I mean, we live in a society that, motivates us to claim our rights. And when we write a piece of music, it has to be registered with the PRS so that we could get our royalties. But I have started to think that for a while that these pieces of music that manifest, especially the ones that are better than the others, the better it is, the less ownership I could claim over it, really, because I realize in this creative process that they just invade me, and it's nothing to do with me. All I'm trying to do is just to become this aspecularia, this clear lens, and just opening somewhere up in top of my head, or, as I said, I don't really know where this thing lives. This interface, if you like.
This is very interesting.
And then things come down, and they come from some other higher spheres, and I get flooded, and I have no control over it. All I'm doing is being a composer. I'm compiling these ideas and giving them a shape. So the big deal is that of a person who compiles, puts together something that's already been created, and it is somewhere out there. It's just that all we do is like plug ourselves into that energy field, and it's like a radio receiver, tuning into all these frequencies out there. But all you have to do with the dial is to nicely adjust it so that it would pick up some frequencies out there and emit a program or a piece of music. So all I'm doing is just that, probably not really being very conscious of it, really.
But what you're talking about just made me think of the Green Party's manifesto policy around copyright, where they found it very difficult to defend the concept that they had, that it's about sharing, giving more freedom to others to share your ideas musically. But we are kind of trapped in I thought of it, I should get paid. I should get paid again and again and again for as many years as possible. It was my idea, not yours.
Well, you do need your food and your flat or house. You do need to survive. We still live in a rather imperfect society, and one day, perhaps it's a bit of a vision, but I believe that. I don't think I'm the only person who believes that, but we as mankind are evolving to reach a certain stage where maybe some people think of it as utopia, but I believe it will one day be possible when we rise to a certain high level of consciousness, super consciousness, and create a completely different society. But at the moment, we still do need to protect ourselves and our rights and defend ourselves. We are in a process of creating this ideal world, but we have to mature to it. So for the time being, I'm happy to declare my pieces for the PRS. But at the same time, I happen to have an awareness of it that it's not really mine. But my skills as a composer, even that is not mine. I mean, what is mine? I haven't even... Everything has been a freebie. It was given to me. So what can I claim any rights for? That the fact that I have maybe spent many, many hours practicing piano as a child or developing my ears so that they can hear so well, I don't really know. It's all still a bit of a grey area, how much of it is something you worked on and developed and how much is just a pure gift.
When LiftMusic signed you and took the first album and edited the tracks, the 12 or 13 tracks, can you explain what those pieces of music have now become? My question is, how did you manage to let go of what was a whole album? And then can you explain how your work is then now being presented by Lift? And what was it like to have them edit and turn it into more pieces of music? And how would those be described? And were they
didn't do that with this album.
Explain it to me.
I think that what happened with this album is, first of all, they heard some of my new music, and they expressed interest in signing me in the capacity of somebody who will be producing new music for them. But because this album has already been created, we found a way of re-releasing it when this music is being played out there under a track that LiftMusic named it. It will be registering certain royalties for myself and Lift. However, it doesn't mean that the album stopped existing as an album and the pieces as their pieces under the original titles. It's still out there, available for anyone who is interested on iTunes or CD Baby and some other internet distributors, untouched. So it's still a hashgacha with all its original tracks. But LiftMusic found a way of re-releasing it as a new entity, if you like.
As 13 pieces or as 100 pieces of music? Did they cut it up?
I don't think they did any editing, but they do that with all the subsequent tracks that I have done for them. They ask me now and again to come up with this mix and another mix without drums, without trumpet, without vocals.
Do they
every track that I give them now comes in a form of a few different mixes, which I have to tweak here in my studio.
And who names these new mixes? You or Lift?
The new compositions are usually named by me, but they have renamed the hashgacha content with suitable titles, and they released them on, I think, a few different albums, a few tracks for different compilations that are suitable for that particular release.
And you're fine about that new journey that these tracks...
Well, the letting go.
Yeah.
Of a baby, it's difficult for every mother. I hear
you open the window and the birds fly out.
It's not mine, right? It's not. I mean, as hashgacha, it's always going to be hashgacha with its original titles and the right order and the gaps between tracks. It's all very well structured and premeditated. But at the same, and even that I have no control over. It's out there somewhere, and whoever buys it wants to do whatever they want. Play just one song or download only one out of 13. It's beyond my control, but yes, it's like letting go of a baby, and off you go, and you live out there in the big wild world with your own life and independence. So that's what you have to do as a creative person. You let go, don't you? For a while, you're still very attached and emotionally, this is mine, this is my music. How funny when people comment what they hear in each tracks. Sometimes it's nothing to do with me. But everybody has now entitlement to interpret and feel each one of those compositions through their own channel, if you like, through their own system. So they come up with all kinds of feelings for every track that I couldn't relate to very often. And very often they feel what I felt, more or less, when creating a track.
When you're creating something, what's the most difficult thing for you?
I haven't thought of that. When I'm creating, it's very often not me creating. All I have to do is to open myself up, and comes the ideas. What I do then is grab my phone or my other recording facility and capture that moment. Sometimes it could be 2 a.m. while I'm trying to fall asleep, and suddenly there it comes. You have to drag yourself out of bed, turn the lights on, get your iPhone, and go on the piano and just sing and play this thing that suddenly manifested.
So
that's not a difficult bit. The difficult bit is the...
Where do the difficulties and struggles come? Is it with the technical processes involved in...
The arrangement, maybe the tracking, I'm not quite sure, but it's painstakingly slow to track all those voices that you hear in your head. Let's say if you have 20 voices in your head, overlaid backing vocals, I'm saying there usually is on average 8 or 12, but they're always double tracked.
Why do you hear so many voices in your head?
I've been trying to ponder that question and figured out that because my mum worked in the opera house till the very day, the last night before I was born at 4 a.m, that night, she was still on stage of the Grand Opera House in Łódź, surrounded with multi-layered harmonies of a choir, orchestra. Perhaps this is where, as an embryo, I've been already exposed to all that multi-sonic experience. I really don't know. It's a mystery. But be that as it may, the fact is that they they come flooding down on me, and then what do you do with it? You either go to sleep and ignore it. The next day it might not be there. I've noticed that it very often just goes and never comes back. It's just gone forever. So having learned that, I have now disciplined myself to just basically get out there, get out of bed or whatever circumstances, and try to capture that, because that's where it comes. You have to catch it when it's there.
What is most thrilling for you?
To then actually hear it all out there, channeled, recorded, channeled out of my busy brains, and to output it, to hear it all outputted. Would you say that?
Outputted, why not? Yes.
Yeah, let's make a neologism.
To give birth, in a way, to these ideas.
Yes, and then hear it back, especially if it's in a good shape in terms of a mix. It's just like an ecstatic experience. It's just like a paradise of some sort for me to hear it back, but providing it's well mixed and here's.
Have you ever heard a track of yours through large cinema speakers?
I wish. I wish it ever happens.
Has anybody used your work in film yet?
Yes, music's been used in film and theatre, but I've never had an opportunity to, hear it like you described in a big cinema.
I remember watching Titanic in Leicester Square Odeon.
That wasn't me.
I know, but when the ship started sinking, the audio of the water pouring into the ship, I thought I was drowning for real in the Odeon building. It was so overwhelming. It was quadraphonic speakers, 2 at the front of the theatre and 2 at the back. And people started screaming. We were watching a film and people were screaming because the sound of the water pouring into the ship was so overwhelming.
Really? Wow.
And I just imagine what it must be like. I'm not a cinematic composer, but to have one of one's own tracks in one of the biggest cinemas, I think, on earth, coming out of quadraphonic speakers with visuals must be amazing. What would you like to be the destiny of your work?
Jan, you ask me so many questions to which I often initially answer, I don't know.
Well, as a songwriter...
It stopped to kind of matter, really. And on this ambiguous note, our interview has been interrupted with an intention to continue, and we do intend to carry on when Jan is back from her tour in Germany. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Jan for her generous, wonderful contributions to this interview, for sort of bringing out of me my potential to be able to speak about my creative work, which isn't always easy, I guess, for those who are in the center of the hurricane, in the midst of it all, to sort of step back and have a look at it from the spectator's point of view. I'm sure the next interview will provide much more entertainment. I hope to be speaking about my forthcoming album, Aspaklaria, and give you some more insights into the secrets of the making of this album and what inspired me. And in the meantime, thank you for listening and bye!